Being educated is probably the only thing that unites Zimbabweans. Whether you're ZANU-PF or MDC Kandoro, we will always agree that we are some of the most educated Africans on the continent. And if you catch us on a good day, we'll even throw in some dubious literacy percentage just for ambience. But that's not why we're here. It's not. In recent years, there's been a lot of effort to panel beat our education curriculum. I say panel beat because at some point, you have to accept that something is dead and either leave it alone or replace it with something new. But having said that, some of the panel beating has actually been commendable, like Jonathan Moyo's STEM. Unfortunately, that program had to follow him to exile. The new dispensation replaced STEM with what they call Education 5.0. And if you can look past the Terminator-inspired name, it's a pretty decent program, aiming to bridge the gap between the high literacy rate and the skills gap. But again, that's not why we're here. I want to make sure that I'm saying this right, so that nothing is lost in translation. Why does our education curriculum exclude children whose talents are in sports and arts? Because as incredible as STEM and Education 5.0 are, they exist specifically for kids who want to further academic disciplines at colleges and universities. Where is the STEM and Education 5.0 for the child whose talent is in football, music, dancing, or drama? Why is everything that isn't academic treated as a luxury? How educated are we if we are still getting surprised that sports and arts industries don't amount to much when our education curriculum excludes arts and sports at its core? Ladies and gentlemen, war vets and unfocused youth, welcome to another episode of Propaganda with Kandoro. Since 1980, the government has built at least 5 state universities, which by Zimbabwean standards is a lot. Like a lot. But how many of these state institutions carry comprehensive arts and sports programs? In that same time period, how many community centers have been built or renovated? Your guess is as good as mine. What I do know is that almost every community center that exists today is from colonial times. Sports, arts, and education all used to be under one ministry until they created 2 separate ministries for education, but bundled sports, arts, culture, and recreation into one ministry, which they then gave to an Olympic swimmer to run. Despite all the financial and structural investment that has gone into achieving academic excellence, we really haven't been doing that well. We actually spoke to a leading expert in academia, and here's what they had to say.
Shakespeare, we need your help.
But don't take his word for it. ZIMSEC has the numbers. There has been a consistent and continuous decline in academic pass rates for the last 5 years. In 2020, there was a 9.79% decline in grade 7 pass rate and a 6.8% decline in the O-level pass rate. We won't even get into how many graduates are currently sitting at home, unemployed, having achieved academic excellence. There's just not enough time. Is it not maybe time to invest just as much into our arts and sports? I asked a friend of mine this question and they argued that support is low for sports and arts because they just haven't shown dividends. Really? Haven't some of our country's proudest moments in recent years come from arts and sports? Warriors qualifying for AFCON. Kirsty Coventry. Danai Gurira. Marvelous Nakamba and Tino Kadewe. The national netball team. Tanya Mzinda. Charles Manyuchi. I could go on. Hey. The state treats arts and sports like step kids, only to be remembered when it's time to entertain the guests. And it needs to stop. We already have a very unequal country as is. Excellent sports and arts programs shouldn't just be available to those with money and can afford to send their kids to private school. It makes the identification of talent extremely difficult. Just imagine how many beast mtawariras have gone undiscovered in Kulumane or Nembudzia. The availability of facilities gives a chance to people who would not have had the same opportunity under different circumstances. Just listen to Precious Marange's story.
Ani ndingangoti ngari 2004 ndichishanda mumba nani ngori housemaid kandaita zviya zvokuti ndichiona TV kwakuchine black and white ndichirambidzwa kuona TV saka ndaita zvekubirira kana vandoshandira vasipo saka ndichibirira ndichingoona mutambo pani asingazivi kuti unofamba sei ndochokwadi ndichifamba ndichienda kumashops ndaingonzwa chingonzi takashinga cricket club muroad ndobva ndabvunza someone ndikati weisi takashinga zvikanzi takashinga iri pasera ndikati right ndaapproacha macoaches ndobva ndatoti inini ndinonzi Precious Marange inini ndiri interested nesport handizive zvangu kunotambwa sei but inini ndiri interested then makocha andobva atotanga wandikocha ndopakatonda pane talent kapa apa ndatoguruma munhu wangu anorova ma6.
And now she is a national team cricket player. I remember ZANU-PF promising the country 2 million jobs. 2 million. You would think they would think to pivot on the low-hanging fruit that is the creative industry. If the state threw its weight behind the entertainment industry, we could easily export the Zimbabwean story through our music and film, just as easily as Nigerians and South Africans have. In South Africa, the entertainment industry is estimated to generate over 150 billion rand per year. And the crazy thing is, some of the most influential people within that industry are Zimbabwean, excelling at jobs that don't even exist in their home country. The long and short of this is, there is a lot of economic potential to be realized. Invest!
If you notice the president's track record ever since he's been in power, you notice that he's been doing all he can to better the lives of people. So far, it's been bettering the lives of people around him, because charity begins at home. Shakespeare akataura, charity begins at home. Look here, hakusi kubika manoodles. It's not going to be a 2-minute process. Munhu wese will benefit eventually, but charity arikutangira pa10 and mbichana chichiuya kuvanhu. It might take, a few decades kuti tisvike kumunhu wese, but we'll get there.
Sports and arts industries have been let down for far too long now, and it's high time that those wrongs were made right. Efforts to remedy this should start with fixing our education curriculum, which currently treats academia as if it's above sports and arts. It's not. Education doesn't begin and end with academia. Those with talents in arts and sports still need to be educated too, from young, about the intricacies of their respective industries and how they can sustain themselves through their talents. One of my closest friends in primary school was a boy named Takuzo. Takuzo was not very good at school. By the time we were in grade 7, he still could barely write a full sentence of English. But the things Takuzo could do with a copper wire, my goodness. One time, he made a haulage truck, and the level of detail on that truck was so ridiculous. I still get goosebumps just thinking about it. The man couldn't spell symmetry to save his life, but he certainly showed it to us. Taku failed his grade 7 exams, and he had to repeat twice just so he could get to Form 1. We lost count of the number of times he had to repeat Form 4 in an attempt to get 5 O-levels. Last I heard, he was somewhere in South Africa, at Kia. What if someone had identified that Taku's talent was in visual arts? What if that talent had been nurtured from early, guided and equipped with even the most basic support? Who's to say Takuzo would not be a big superstar in the visual arts world? Sadly, we will never know because he never got that chance. Now let me ask you who's watching this. How many Takuzas do you know in your personal life? What good is being the most educated if you are not using that education to empower your fellow countrymen? This has been another episode of Propaganda with Kandoro. And if everything goes well, I'll catch you guys next week.